Good afternoon from Axiom Space Mission Control in Houston, Texas. My name is Trisha Bhattacharya, a crew systems lead here at Axiom. Today is flight day 4, and this is our first daily update of the Axiom-1 mission currently underway on the International Space Station. This mission is the first all-private astronaut mission to the ISS, and it represents the first of several planned private astronaut missions by Axiom Space. This Ax-1 mission is a culmination of years of hard work between both government and private entities to expand the opportunities of private citizens and governments around the world to partake in meaningful science, research, and STEAM-related activities in low Earth orbit. We believe that the commercial efforts in low Earth orbit should build on the foundation NASA has laid, while expanding the volume and type of research and manufacturing capabilities for the benefit of all. Missions just like this one will open the door for new countries around the world to pursue and participate in the benefits of human spaceflight. And for Axiom Space, each of our private astronaut missions are critical steps in the development of our Axiom Station, the world's first private space station, currently under construction. As the first private astronaut mission to the International Space Station and the first Axiom Space mission, the crew of Ax-1 underwent 700 to 8,000 hours of training to prepare for the mission. On Friday, April 8th, the crew walked out of the SpaceX Falcon support building fully suited up and ready for launch. From there, they were transported to the historic launch pad 39A. They ascended the fixed service structure and were helped into the Dragon spacecraft Endeavour. Once all of the final checkouts were completed, Commander Michael López-Alegría, pilot Larry Connor, and mission specialists Eitan Stibba and Mark Pathy launched from Earth at 11:17 a.m. Eastern Time.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Stop. Go Falcon, go Dragon. Godspeed, Axiom 1.
Together, a new chapter begins. Godspeed, Ax-1.
From there, the crew spent just under 21 hours in orbit until they rendezvoused with the International Space Station. While in orbit, they conducted a live in-Dragon event and introduced the world to their zero-G indicator, Caramel, the mascot of the Montreal Children's Hospital. At 8:29 a.m. Eastern on Saturday, April 9th, the crew docked with the International Space Station, and at the time, they were 256 miles above the Atlantic Ocean. Once the hatches were opened, the crew boarded the International Space Station and were welcomed by the members of Expedition 67. And so began their 8-day mission aboard the orbiting laboratory. During their time on Axiom Station, the crew will participate in a wide range of studies, STEM events, artistic engagements, and outreach opportunities. Joining me now is Axiom Space's own Dave Wiedmeyer. Dave, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So Dave, you serve as the Axiom Operations Lead, or Axol for short. For our viewers, what does that role consist of?
So the Axol, the Axiom Operations Lead, we're responsible for leading and integrating all the different members of the Axiom Flight Control team. So just making sure we're all coming together, meeting the mission objectives and the priorities, and just making sure that we're getting all the things done and marching along day by day.
Great. So we've talked a lot about private missions, but what exactly does that mean?
So traditionally, space missions are all flown by government professional astronauts who've worked their whole lives for this. This is their job, basically, right? Now we have 4 private individuals going to space to do, again, same thing, but research, technology, education, those types of things. And while there have been private individuals that have gone to space before, they've always been part of some government program or rode up with other government astronauts. But now we have 4 individuals, 4 private citizens that are responsible for themselves on the Dragon spacecraft on the way up and the way down, and more or less for their objectives while they're on ISS.
And that's really exciting. So, you know, as part of this mission, we involve team members as part of our flight ops group who have years of flight ops experience. So how is Axiom engaged in the operations on the station?
So we have a team of folks that are supporting the mission, smaller than what you'd see of a typical flight control mission or for flight control team like ISS has. But we do have about 6 or so folks that sit console 24/7, starting from launch day, and will be there until undock. So we have a team of axles. There's 3 other folks like me that are leading and doing all that integration work. We have a position called Adam, which is our timeline and operations manager. So they've been doing all the planning pre-flight, and then they're building all the plans day by day, so the crew can have a timeline to work towards every day. Another position we have is called Axis. It's an integration and stowage position, so they kind of know where everything is in the Dragon and where things are on ISS now, so they can point the crew where to go to get all the various things they need. Arrow is our Axiom research officer. So we have a team of folks that have all kinds of experience from previous NASA work and understand all the different science and research tools and things that are out there, so they understand all the research objectives and the things that the crew are doing on that front. And then we have a team of BMEs and surgeons, so biomedical engineers, that are making sure the crew is healthy and just doing well while they're up there.
Wow, certainly takes a village. So, the crew officially boarded the ISS and on flight day 2. Today is obviously flight day 4. So can you explain what a flight day is, and then what the highlights were for the first 4 flight days?
Yeah, so a flight day is just a way for us to kind of break down time for the mission, and we don't just use calendar days because we operate on Greenwich Mean Time or Universal Coordinated Time, which is about 5 hours ahead of the time here in Houston. So it's just a way for us to kind of chunk up the days. Flight day 1 was launch. Flight day 2 was the rendezvous and docking with ISS. And then flight day 3 and 4 were the first kind of real days on ISS. Flight day 3 was some of the kind of standard logistics type thing that a new crew would do when they get on board. A lot of unpacking Dragon so they could have all their equipment and things on ISS for them to use for the rest of the mission. They also did some handover with the ISS expedition crew, so a ton of training that the guys have had on the ground, but once you get up there, things are a little bit different once you're actually in microgravity, right? So kind of some showing around of ISS by the expedition crew so they can see how things really are. And then they spent a good chunk of time doing an emergency equipment transfer, so getting some emergency equipment off ISS and into Dragon, again, because these 4 guys, they're responsible for themselves and for the mission, so if there were to be some sort of emergency or catastrophic failure on ISS that would require them to undock in short order, they have to have that equipment on ISS to be able to save themselves and come home safely.
Certainly something critical to note. So for flight day 4, what science and research efforts did the crew conduct today?
So today, one of the big ones that Larry was focused on was an experiment called Aging and Heart Health, where he's looking at these, looking at genes and looking for markers that make you susceptible or not to different things as you get older. We did the very first 2-way holoportation from space. So there's been 1-way before, but Mark worked on doing the very first 2-way holoportation demo, and he's going to continue to do that.
Wow.
And kind of perfect that technology while he's up there. We're starting to do some supercomputing and data processing in space, just again trying to move into that next generation of space flight. And then also Aton started recording some educational and outreach videos that are going to be used to educate kids here on Earth.
Wow, jam-packed schedule indeed. So given all that, how is our crew doing, and how are they acclimating to microgravity?
Yeah, so it's always different for everybody, right? But they're all smiles. They seem to be doing well. They had the first few flight days in Dragon to kind of get used to just living in microgravity. It's a little different once you get on ISS, right? Because it's a much bigger space.
Sure.
But they seem to be in good spirits, and they're really enjoying being up there.
Great, that's always wonderful to hear. So part of our goal is to expand the volume of science and research portfolios that can be done on station. And naturally, that also means that there are physically just more people on board the ISS than is typical. So what can you tell us about the logistics in place to accommodate all the extra crew members?
Yeah, so it's definitely a challenge. There's 11 folks up there now, which is 4 more than typical. Okay. Sometimes there's much short duration handovers where there's that many people on board, but living and working with that many is definitely a challenge, and that's one of the big reasons that we have an Axiom flight control team is to kind of help work with the ISS team to understand all those logistical challenges. One example was today with Larry working on the aging and heart health science. He's in the one life science glove box that's required to do this science, and it's used for a lot of different things. So you need to coordinate who's using it, prioritize science, and also just the spatial constraints of when someone's in there, you can't be around them or certain things. So it's been definitely a challenge, but our team is working with the ISS folks to deconflict all those, and it's going well.
Great, that's good to hear. So, further on, going into more detail on that, so where is each crew member sleeping?
Yeah, so ISS isn't used to having 11 people on board, so we have some folks kind of camping out. We have Aton and Mark are sleeping in the Columbus module. Larry's actually sleeping in Dragon, which is pretty typical actually for having a crew on ISS. And then we have LA sleeping in the airlock.
Wow, yeah, I'm sure that adds to the experience. So what are the teams preparing for in the coming days?
Yeah, so we're finishing out, finalizing the plans and building the timelines for the crew. In the few upcoming days, LA is going to be doing some tumor and cell research. He's also working on a payload called NeuroWellness, which is kind of this helmet thing that studies pulses from your brain, and they check your pre-flight, during flight, and then after flight, just to kind of see how microgravity affects cognitive abilities for space flight. Larry's also going to be doing that same experiment, and he's going to continue some of this aging heart health gene science. Mark's really focused on some more technology demonstrations, and he's going to continue to work on the holoportation. And then one of the things that Aton's working on tomorrow actually is called a fluidics optics. So he's working on developing high precision optical lenses in microgravity, so there's a way to get a lot of the imperfections that you would see on an Earth environment, that you can kind of make better quality optics in space.
Wow, a lot of exciting things that are happening. So Dave, thank you for joining me today. Clearly there's a lot in progress on the ISS and here on Earth supporting the crew. So we're very excited to see what all they participate in over the coming days. For now, the crew has completed their work schedule for today and are in their sleep period. And for continuous updates, be sure to visit axiomspace.com. Otherwise, we'll see you right here tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central for an update on Flight Day 5. I'm Trisha Bhattacharya, wishing each of you and the crew of Ax-1 a good night.